So clause 6, right? Now this is about planning. Now clause 6 is made up of three subclauses. There is 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. So 6.1 talks about the actions to address risks and opportunities. 6.2 is about quality objectives and planning to achieve them. And then 6.3 is about the planning of changes to the QMS. So let's begin. Let's see what each of these clauses require the organization to do in order to be certified by the standard. All right. So according to 6.1, that which addresses what the actions to address risks and opportunities. 6.1.1. Under the 6.1, there are two further subclauses. And the first one, which is what 6.1.1 says that when planning for the QMS, right? I'm reading from here at this point. When planning for the QMS, let me read this down. When planning for the QMS, the organization, what's the keyword here, shall consider the issues referred to in 4.1, right? What are the issues referred to in 4.1? Let's refresh our memory. 4.1 was about understanding the organization and its context, right? So those issues over there, that where you have the internal and external issues, and what the requirements referred to in 4.2 over here. 4.2 talk about the interested parties and determine the risks and opportunities that need to be addressed to. Right. So basically, it's saying out when you are planning the QMS, the organization has to consider two things: the internal and external issues from 4.1 and the relevant requirements of the interested parties to the QMS in 4.2. And they must also determine the risks and opportunities that arise from these two things. So there are internal and external issues and the relevant requirements that their interested parties have in the QMS. They have to identify or determine the risks and opportunities that come from these two avenues, right? And those risks and opportunities need to be addressed in order to what? A, give assurance that the QMS can achieve its intended results, right? B, enhance the desirable results. C, prevent or reduce undesired effects. And D, achieve improvement. So, what exactly is it that we are the standard is trying to let us know, right? Remember, if you are learning this, you must always put things in context. So, basically speaking, you understand that when you talk about risk-based thinking, it has to do with what? First, you determining your risks and opportunities. Second is for you to put preventive controls in place in order to what? Minimize the impact of your risk on the QMS and on your company's ability to achieve its goal. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is to what? Maximize your opportunities, right? And so that the reason why they need to do that is because it will give assurance that their QMS will achieve its goal, right? It will be successful. It also enhances their desired effects, right? That is to say, the the things that you want your QMS to achieve, it enhances the QMS ability to achieve those things. And see, it prevents or reduces undesired effects. That's to say, it prevents wasted, or so it prevents wastage. And this is what achieve improvement, right? TQM is about what continuous improvement in all aspects. Focus on three things: employee improvement, process improvement, and the last one is what customer satisfaction. So let us move on and see what clause 6.1.2 has for us. Right. So 6.1.2 right here says that now after the organization has addressed those issues in 6.1.1, 6.2 is saying that the organization, what's the keyword over here? Organization shall plan A, the actions to address these risks and opportunities, and B, how to one integrate and implement those actions into the QMS processes, right? That's 4.4, the QMS and these processes. To evaluate the effectiveness of these actions, right? So basically, I found out, let's sit down. So, what I explained to us about the risk based thinking under clause 6, 6.1 is basically That's the main clause that is incorporating the risk-based thinking up into the standard, right? So clearly, 6.1 is saying out. First, you have to identify your 6.1.1. First, tell her out. You need to determine those risks and opportunities, right? Coming from the internal and external issues in 4.1, and the relevant requirements of the interested parties in 4.2, right? Because the reasons we're giving, we already covered that, right? Now it's telling you that you have to take action. Now, this action is what we call it, the preventive controls that I talked about earlier. Preventive controls, right? So the organization is required shall plan a actions to address this risk and opportunity, right? And B, how to integrate and implement those actions into the QMS processes. So that's to say, how do we, or how does the company then integrate those actions or make those actions a part of the QMS? Now, when they do that, they must also evaluate the effectiveness of these actions. Now, what does that hint at? If you are following at this point, you should remember that this standard ISO 9001 2015, right? This standard, I don't know why. It uses the process-based approach, and that's where the PDCA cycle comes in, right? Plan, do, check, and act. So one of the common threads in this standard is always going back to check on what you have done. So you plan, you do it, right? You execute your plan, and then you check to see what, if everything is going well. If it's not going well, you come and act. You put correction in place, right? So anticipate the difference between what correction and corrective action, right? Correction is more reactive, and corrective action is proactive, right? So something happens. Let's say you mop the floor. Somebody doesn't. Yeah, let me bring more context into this. You're a business. You've opened shop, and your floors have just been mopped, right? All of a sudden, the customer walks in unaware that the floor was just mopped recently. What happens? They slip and then they fall down. Their back is broken. The correction over here is for you to see to it that yeah, well, you take off their bills, you go to court, that will happen now. And at the end of the day, it is to make sure that the customer is compensated for the loss that they suffered by falling down and breaking their back. Right? That's a correction. Right? It's reactive. You waited for the person to finish falling down before you did something about it to return them to their required state. But when we talk about corrective action, that one is more like, oh, okay, last time I mopped the floor and all of a sudden one of the customers just came in further and broke their backs. Corrective action is more about what can I do to make sure that that doesn't happen again, right? So you get one of those signs, those floorboards that's out. Be careful, wet floors, right? So when people say that, it prompts them, and they know that, oh, they need to take heed, be careful the steps that they're taking. If not, they will fall, right? And that makes you not liable for them getting hurt, right? So it's a corrective action, one that is aimed at preventing faults from occurring. All right, that's just a tidbit. Let's move on. Right, so 6.1.2 talks about the actions, right? First, you shall plan the actions to address your risks and opportunities. The actions have to minimize the risk and maximize opportunities, and you must the company or the organization must also plan a how to make the actions, which is what, integrate and implement those actions into the QMS processes. That's reference. The normative reference here is what, 4.4. Now, to evaluate the effectiveness of these actions. How effective are the actions? Right? Those actions that they took to minimize the risk and opportunity. Is it effective? Good. So actions taken to address risks and opportunities shall, I'm reading from here. Actions taken to address risks and opportunities shall be proportionate to the potential impact on the conformity of products and services. So note one says what? Um, I don't think I did justice to this one. Let me come back. Right. So the actions, like these actions, these preventive controls that you take to address your risks and opportunities. This standard is saying that you are required, you shall. So the actions or the preventive controls shall what? Be proportionate to the potential impact on the conformity of products and services. Right. So it is a must that the actions you take are, should I say, big enough or good enough. You should take the right actions according to the proportion of the potential impact. Right? Let's say somebody can fall down on the floor. So maybe a year you can anticipate that you can have a lot of legal issues, and legal issues can be very expensive. You don't go and take a small measure like, how do I put it? The measure that you take, imagine you saving 500 cedis for liability issues, right? That's not a serious um, action, because 500 cedis cannot do anything. So you're saying that maybe if you estimate your risk, and your risk could be like in the range of 10,000 Ghana cedis, that's a preparation that you have to make, right? So you have to ensure that you are putting that kind of money aside that can take up that issue, right? So it should be proportionate to the potential impact, right, on the conformity of products and services. That's what that means, right? So don't, big problem, big solution, right? Big opportunity, bigger um, attention, bigger intelligence, bigger focus. That basically speaking, it should be proportionate, right? So moving on. See, always remember that when you talk about the notes, whenever you see notes in this, the notes are simply referring to, the notes break down certain things that have been used. So let's talk about it. So note one said that options to address risk can include avoiding risk, taking risks in order to pursue an opportunity, eliminating the risk source, changing the likelihood or consequences, sharing the risk or retaining the risk by informed decision. So those actions, these preventive controls that you can put in place, the standard has defined them in note one that when you're taking the action, the actions, some of the actions that you can take to address your risk include these things, avoiding them, blah blah, right? So these are the kinds. Oh, what is this? So these are from avoiding risk to the end. It's talking about the kinds of actions that you can take, right? The kinds of actions or types of actions. It's giving you an example of the actions that you can take. Examples of the preventive controls, right? So let's say that you have a question. Yeah, we'll solve past questions eventually, but this is just a preview. Imagine, exam, you are required to explain the various risks and the various actions an organization can take to minimize the risk, right? So you can put these things in place like that. Oh, they include avoiding risk, taking risks in order to pursue an opportunity, eliminating the risk source, changing the likelihood or consequences, sharing the risk, right? That's how you should be thinking, right? Now, opportunities can lead to the adoption of what new practices, launching new products, opening new markets, addressing new clients, building partnerships, using new technology and other desirable, I'm for you, right? And other desirable and viable possibilities to address the organization's or its customers' needs, right? And this is just send out. This is how opportunities can come, right? Opportunities can come in you what adopting new practices to get better, you launching new products to make more money, you opening new markets to get your exposure and make more money. Basically speaking, it's speaking about how your opportunities will be looking. Good. So that's it for 6.1 right now. I move to 6.2. Now, like 6.1, 6.2 also has two sub clauses. Now, 6.2 is mainly about the quality objectives and planning to achieve them, right? Over here. right? Quality objectives and plan to achieve them. So 6.2.1 says out the organization heads up keyword, right? This is a keyword. The organization shall establish quality objectives and relevant functions, levels, and processes needed for the QMS, right? Now, the quality of objectives shall A, be consistent with the quality policy, B, be measurable, C, take into account applicable requirements, C, D, rather, be relevant to conformity of products and services and to enhancement of customer satisfaction, be monitored, right? Basically speaking, some with things like this one, forgive me for being blunt, but you have to just know them of it. At least 5 things over here or 6 things over here. You should know them of it because that's what's going to help you. The main thing on in this clause is what the fact that this clause, the main takeaway from here is 6.2.1 says that the organization shall what? Establish quality policies, quality of objectives, right, at relevant functions. This is the main point. Levels and processes needed for the QMS. So 6.2.1 is basically saying that what the organization shall what? Establish quality objectives, right? Now it further goes on to describe how the how this quality objective should be, or should I say it goes to describe the characteristics or qualities that these quality objectives should have. That's what I've seen over here at this point. No, so, okay, right? So it's saying that the quality objective shall be what? A, consistent with the quality policy, be measurable, take into account applicable requirements, be relevant to conformity of products and services, and to enhancement of customer satisfaction, be monitored, right? So that's just that. So to move on, is it- all right, what do you have here? Another shall. So what I said about the organization shall. Let me have this. The organization shall maintain documented information on the quality objectives, right? So now they also have to document the information. So that's what 6.2.1 is talking about. The fact that what the organization has to what establish quality objectives. Now 6.2.2 is saying out. Now when planning how to achieve its quality objective, the organization shall, right, always pay attention to where the shall comes because that's where the requirement is. Right? Is that part of the clause that is telling you what needs to be done by the organization if they want to be certified by the standard? And that's the most important thing for you to always remember, right? Especially when you are dealing with auditing questions. Good. So, right, 6.2.1 says out when planning how to achieve its quality objectives, the organization shall determine A, what will be done, B, what resources will be required, C, who will be responsible, D, when it will be completed, and E, how the results will be evaluated. Right? We have that. Good. Are you with me? So obviously 6.2.2 is talking about how the firm can create those quality objectives. No, this is how. Okay, when you're planning on how to achieve your quality objective, right? The way they achieve, right? To attain your goal, right? They have to determine exactly what they want to do, the resources that they will need to do it, who will be responsible for what, when will what's the timeline, what time are what are they looking at, and they have to work on a timeline, right? And how the results will be evaluated. That's what this means. 6.3. 6.3 says what? Planning of changes, right? So in the event, so let me read. When the organization determines the need for changes to the QMS, the changes shall be carried out in a what? In a planned manner. It says what? C clause 4.4. So if I go back with my standard here, I'm using my hard copy. So 4.4 I'm seeing it. It says what? Planning of changes. Yeah, so that's a G. So under 4.4, G says what? Evaluate the organization shall determine the processes needed for the QMS and their application throughout the organization and shall, or G says what? Evaluate these processes and implement any changes needed to ensure that these processes achieve their internal results, right? So it's been referenced. That's just by the way. But we're not done with 6.3. Now see, right. So 6.3 says that when they are planning to make those changes, excuse me, when the organization determines the need for change to the QMS. So when they decide out, oh, that our QMS, we need to change how our QMS is. The changes shall be carried out firstly what in a planned manner. Good. And the reference there is what? Clause 6.4, another context of organization. So moving on, if further goes on to say that when they are making those changes, they have to consider certain things. So the organization shall consider the purpose of the changes and their potential consequences. Why are we making changes? And what are the potential no, what are some of the things that would come about as a result of the changes that we've made? D and B, the integrity of the QMS. Will we compromise the QMS if we make changes to it? Because the integrity of the QMS has to be maintained. The availability of resources. Do they have the Stuttgart? No. Do they have the resources? If it's money, do they have the money? If it's the manpower, do they have the manpower? Do they have the skill? Okay, not really skill, but you get what I mean. Do they have the skill to get that done? And the allocation or reallocation of responsibilities and authority. So those are the things that they need to consider and making changes, right? So that's all for clause 6. We've talked about three things under clause 6. The first thing was actions to address the recent opportunities, right? That's what that refers to the preventive controls. So under the 6.1, it first gives talks about what under 6.1. First, you learn how to you learn the reasons why the organization has what you learn the reasons why the organization has to address the recent opportunities, right? The reasons. That's the A to the D. Those are the reasons. So they have to address the recent opportunities in order to give assurance that like QMS, so on and so forth. And then we moved on to talk about what next spoke about the actions, right? The actions that they can take, right? So basically speaking, 6.1.2 is requiring the organization to now take action. 6.1.1 said that they should determine their recent opportunities. And 6.1.2 said that after I've determined it, now take action. Now 6.2 goes on to say that they have to come up with quality objectives, right? Quality objectives, and they have to plan on how to achieve them. So 6.2.1 talks about what? How the quality of the first it says that what the company shall establish the quality objectives. Then it goes on to say that what the quality objectives shall have the following characteristics. That's why you have the A to the G, no at least five. 6.2.2, when planning on how to achieve its quality objectives, the organization shall determine what to be done, right? So 6.2.2 just gives you the breakdown on what you need to do in order to create your quality objectives. It's like a detailed map on how to create your quality objectives. When you answer those questions, you have your quality objectives. 6.3 says what? Planning of changes. Planning of changes comes in where they sit down, they check, they do their PDCA cycle. They use the process based approach and say, oh no, certain things have to change. Then what do they do? They continuously improve and they make those changes. Exactly. So thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Watch out for clause 7.